What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Men's Room interview series. I'm your host, Mark Sparks. Today we're going to be talking with Cajun, but before we get started, let's take a look at his bio. Cajun hails from Moncton, New Brunswick, and holds 2 university degrees in film and MIT. He began teaching dating seminars all over the world with love systems for 4 years now, after being hired at a bar where he was running game. In 2008 and 9, he was named one of the top 10 pickup artists in the world by 2 different online publications, and was featured on the show Keys to the VIP, where he was declared the best we've ever seen. Cajun is the author of CajunsBlock.com, drinks more than you, and wants you to know that he can beat up your dad. He joins us today to talk about his findings from studying body language and online dating. Cajun, man.
How's it going, man?
Life is good. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. It's been like a couple of years.
Been 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, about 2 years.
Time. Yeah.
And you've been busy as hell.
Yeah, I've been pretty busy. I've been, traveling the world and doing my thing and stuff. So.
You've been collecting a couple, trophies, if you will, or what you call it.
Sure, I guess you call it that.
I noticed top 10 in the seduction world.
Yeah, that's really nice to be recognized by my peers like that. So
right.
I appreciate that sort of stuff. So it's good. Yeah, it's fun.
So I'm as they say, I'm always humbled to be able to pick the brain of the people who come into the men's room.
Yours to pick, yeah.
So let's talk about some stuff here.
Sure.
I know some of the recent things that you've been talking about.
Yeah.
Body language.
Yeah. For me specifically, what I like talking about in relation to body language, I spent like years looking at all the people that I think had the best body language in the world, right? So like rock stars, like actors, musicians, and all these types of people that are sort of in a position where they know they're being watched by thousands or even millions of people. And so all their movements carry a lot more meaning than they would normally for us.
Right.
So, and they're very conscious of that as well. And I kind of looked at all of them and looked at what all the things they had in common. And I looked at sort of, it got really specific. In fact, my friends would be making fun of me because I'd be watching like Billy Joel videos, looking at they're like, why are you what are you doing listening to Billy Joel, dude? And I'm like, no, I'm actually not listening to him. I'm just looking at his face expressions and like the movements that he does with his body when he does a certain lyric on the song, what his face expression is, or the way that he moves his body. When he's doing interviews, how he's sort of, because he's really good at this, he'll actually seduce the women interviewing him. So yeah, so to me it's like I've always been really focused on body language because I think it literally is the most important thing. I can say whatever I want to a girl in terms of the content of what I'm saying, and on paper you'd be like, that's a ridiculous thing to say, but when you add the right sort of subtext to it, when you add the right body language to it, when you have the right emotion behind it, that's when it creates a sort of sexual sort of aspect to it, and that's how you sell it, essentially.
I think you say subtext, and I think there's a couple things that we could touch on, but what are some of the points, I guess, that you found from all these people? Yeah,
there's a couple interesting things. One thing I noticed that was really interesting was, so if you look at the way that Greek gods were carved in the stone, you look at Greek gods, and I guess Michelangelo's David is another good example of a statue with the same sort of thing. Mm-hmm. You look at their body, the way they're standing and stuff, they have a 45-degree angle. So which anyone who's in film or photography knows, that's sort of like the angle of, it's sort of like a gazing, right? They're meant to be a spectacle at 45 degrees.
Statue.
Yeah,
right.
You're presenting yourself as someone who should be gazed upon.
Yeah.
So 45-degree angles, putting the weight on your back foot, arching your back a little bit, and putting your head up. If you notice Greek statues, the way they would carve their gods and their heroes in stone, they're all carved in the exact same position. And it kind of makes you wonder, what the hell did the Greeks know? And when you do that, and you have that same sort of position, it actually gives you this sort of sexual presence. Jim Morrison knew about it. That's the way he stood still when he was singing on stage. He'd stand in that exact position that he got from those statues. And he was one of the most, the biggest sexual icons of his generation.
Absolutely.
And, all these other guys that are sexual icons, they all got it from dancing. Like Mick Jagger would do his moves, and, Robert Plant would have the open chest and all that stuff and the long mane. Jim Morrison he didn't really dance much. He just kind of stood still, but he still had that vibe going for him.
Right.
He got it from, like I said, the Greek statues. He looked at the way Marilyn Monroe, she'd relax her eyes, purse her lips a little bit, raise her head up a little bit, and he used to do the same thing. You ever look at Marilyn Monroe when she doesn't know she's being photographed? Looks like a completely different person. So you have to wonder, these people, they knew what they were doing.
Right.
And they put a lot of research and a lot of sort of effort into making sure that the way they were being captured, the way they were being presented, was entirely controlled by them. And they would do it in a way that would promote their sexuality. So I think there's a lot of things in there I could go over, but essentially, to give you a rundown, at least like the ones I just mentioned, relaxing your eyes, slowing down your movements, taking up as much space as you can. So you're sitting down, draping your arms across the chair instead of being the guy that's sort of like, like this.
Right.
I always like to say have a look of, an inquisitory look of mild arousal on your face, almost as if it's a certainty that something is going to happen, and you're just kind of looking up and down, trying to see if it's going to be good, or trying to see if she fits the bill type thing, which isn't powerful sometimes. But it's not necessarily, the thing about this, it's not necessarily putting all these together at the same time. It's just taking pieces of them and using them in the right opportunities in the right situations.
How would you decipher what a situation is? Because I'm like, okay, well, is this a situation where I should, what would be your keys to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, if there's any sort of situation where I can tell there's interest from her point of view. Now, this can be translated through eye contact, through her body language in terms of she's facing me with her shoulders pointed right straight towards me. If she's doing something that's giving a tell the fact that she's self-conscious. So any movement you do should be deliberate. As men or as alpha men, every movement you make should be deliberate. There should be a reason for it, right?
Right.
Any movement you make that's not deliberate, all that does is tell the person that sees it that you're uncomfortable or that you're self-conscious. So when women do these things like just playing with your hair or scratching your head for no reason, twiddling your thumbs, right? All these things are basically telling someone that you're self-conscious. So when you're self-conscious, usually it's because you're, at least in the context of seduction, in the context of an interaction with a woman, she's being self-conscious because she's maybe worried or conscious of how she's being perceived by you, and she wants to make a good impression, which is a good thing.
Right.
So if she's giving these tells, playing with her hair, or being fidgety, like she knows that you're sort of maybe looking at her in that certain light, and she wants to give off the best impression, which is a good thing.
Right. Well, she's aware of it, and she's trying to play into it.
Exactly. So they'll do things like that if they touch you at all in any sort of context, ask you a question. All these things are the sort of signs that she's interested in you. And they're signs to me that I can push it forward a little bit. Because as soon as that chase is happening, as soon as I know that she's chasing me, all of a sudden I'm the one that can lead the trail, essentially, lead the path and get her to follow it. So it has to do with subtext a lot, actually, which is essentially how women communicate most of the time. Especially in a bar, in a space or in a situation where the context of what is happening is that she knows. I mean, women know, even if you use like these openers we give, like the best opener in the world, these indirect openers, is it weird if you wash your can opener or whatever the ones, that we give.
Right.
The women still know deep down that you're hitting on them. They know because you're in a bar and you're talking to her, right? So the subtext there is always going to be, what are you thinking in terms of, like some guys go in, they're thinking, shit, okay, I want this girl to like me. I don't want to fuck this up. I want this girl to like me. And when they think that in their head, they actually subcommunicate that. And women will pick up on that. So it's actually not a good idea to be thinking that when you're going in. You don't want to be thinking, I really hope I don't mess this up. I really hope she likes me. I really hope that I can get her to like me. Because as soon as you do that, she's going to pick up on that, and that's going to creep her out. A lot of it has to do with changing your subtext to be more beneficial for you.
Right.
So for me, my subtext when I go in, if it's sort of women that seem to be like women that would give me a bit of trouble, give me a little bit, maybe not attitude, but make me work for it a little bit more than other women would, then I'm going to go in with the attitude of, or with the subtext of, I dare you to try to blow me out, as we say. I dare you to try to reject me because I'm so charming, it's not going to work. So that's sort of the idea I have in my head when I'm talking to them. So when I'm talking to them, I'm basically subcommunicating that. You'll find that when you can do this and you can do it well, and the trick to doing it well is just actually believing that. A lot of the time, they won't even give you any tests at all. They'll just sort of instinctively know that you'll pass them. In fact, a lot of the women that I end up dating, I actually ask them, when was it that you were attracted to me? Like at what point did you become attracted to me? They would say, pretty much right away. And I was like, well, why though? And it's happened more than once where the women have said, because you just gave me that vibe that even if I wanted to reject you, it wouldn't have worked. That's really interesting how that works. I'm not the most attractive guy in the bar, but at the same time, I can give off this sort of subcommunication that says, I deserve you, or I'm the guy that is going to get you, just based on my own sort of beliefs in my head. So that's a really powerful thing. And a lot of that is subcommunicated with your body language. Mm-hmm. It starts in your head, but it gets released through your body language, not your words.
Right. So you're talking about, believing what you're thinking, and thinking the right thing.
Yeah.
How did you get yourself to that?
Right. if you have the ability to believe your own bullshit, very good ability to have. Now, not everyone can do that. It's a tough thing to be able to do that, right? But there are sort of things you can do in order to make you believe things that you wouldn't necessarily believe in. So there's this thing we call exposure therapy, which is essentially so let's say you have a belief that you want to fix, that is, maybe it's true to you, but I want you to believe that it's false. So let's say you have the belief that women don't want to talk to you, which a lot of guys have that belief, right? You get a lot of guys that are like, women just don't want to talk to me. I'm not someone they want to talk to. And that really is something they believe.
Right.
And that's why it's true, because they believe it.
Yeah.
And so I tell them, okay, so with exposure therapy, I'm going to put them in situations that disprove that belief. And if I put them in enough situations that disprove that belief, then that belief becomes false. And the new belief takes over. So for instance, if they believe that women didn't want to talk to them, don't like talking to them, maybe I'll tell them, go tell those girls over there, say, hey, listen, my buddy's out with me tonight, he's really depressed. I just want to, I want to have a good time tonight. You guys know any good places around here that would, there's a lot of people that he could meet and have a good time? Now, a conversation is probably going to come out of that. Women aren't really going to be threatened by something like that. They're not going to think he's hitting on them, probably. He's just legitimately asking for advice. And so the girls will probably end up having a conversation with them, and maybe they'll answer the question, maybe they'll go into another conversation or whatever.
Right.
And the belief that women don't want to talk to him sort of gets illustrated, whether he believes it or not.
Right.
So there's ways you can do it beyond sort of being a sociopath and believing your own bullshit. But I guess the biggest difference, like I said earlier, between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people believe that they can, and that's sort of the biggest difference there. Even impossible things, they just believe that I can. Like I have no trouble admitting that I'm overconfident, right? And it's not necessarily the best thing. It's gotten me in trouble a couple times. The story I mentioned to you earlier.
From time to time,
it gets me in trouble. But in the end, I still sort of believe in my ability to overcome those situations that happen to me, and so. So my belief that I have the ability to overcome, no matter what the circumstances that I find myself in, gives me the confidence to basically believe in myself no matter what the situation. Because I just believe, because I've gotten in enough situations, and I put myself in enough situations, scary situations, and gotten through them, that I just believe at this point that I can really be in any situation, scary or not, or whatever it may be, and just have that confidence and know that I'm going to get through it. And I know now that that's what gets me through it. Not my abilities necessarily, but just my belief in my abilities. So,
how powerful is it to been in those situations and putting? Do you put some of the guys that you're in? We talk about talking to those girls, but do you put them into situations that are scary?
Yeah, I do. I put them in really scary situations, at least for them. They are
right, and that's
right.
Yeah.
It may be something like telling a girl that she's beautiful, going up to a girl in a bar and saying, "I'm sorry, you're absolutely gorgeous. What's your name?" Just saying something like that, which I've had guys that have gone to war and sat in tents with mortar shells firing all around all night, and they said it's scarier in the bar doing that it was sleeping in that tent. And just there's a weird psychological thing where it's like, wow, that's really, that's kind of sad, to tell you the truth. And so basically that comes down to not necessarily because they've actually went up to women and said this and had really socially damaging things happen to them. It's mostly because they sort of have these negative ideas in their head of what might happen, what might go wrong. These negative, they visualize what might go wrong, and it's the most terrible thing in the world. And they just think that's what's going to happen. So I force them to go and do these things. Like, no, listen, you paid me a lot of money. I'm going to make you do this, and you're going to learn, whether you like it or not, that this isn't as scary as you think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
You said visualization, and I was actually just about to ask you how important is that in this process?
Oh man, visualization is huge. The one reason, I'm sure you've heard of the 3-second rule. It's been around forever.
Yep.
You have 3 seconds to approach a girl after you see her.
Or else,
One of the biggest reasons why that's so important is because after 3 seconds, your brain naturally starts having negative visualizations. It starts thinking what might happen and what might go wrong, and what are you going to do in case that goes wrong. So you may think, what am I going to say? What if she says this? Oh, fuck. If she says that, what am I going to do? Oh, my God. Then I'm going to be, oh, God. And all of a sudden, what amounts to simply saying maybe hello, or simply asking a question, turns into this huge, massive problem that you can't even work out. And by the time you get up there, you're already trying to figure out 10 steps ahead, and you just come across like a weirdo. And you're going to get rejected right away.
Right.
So it's important to, first of all, follow the 3-second rule. But even if you're not, try to have positive visualization. I used to visualize everything going perfectly right before. Not necessarily the exact wording of what I would use, but mostly just sort of the emotions that would be sort of communicated. So she's going to have a big smile on her face. They're going to be really excited to talk to me. They're going to be, really excited that I'm talking to them, stuff like that. visualize it in my head, sort of like look at their faces and print it in my brain with an image of them being excited to talk to me or having a good time. And then it would be easy. Or you could change the context of what you're doing. So something I used to tell students is, instead of them thinking, I'm going to hit on that girl, think about this. Well, what if you own the bar? What if you own the bar and you're going around, you're noticing all this money you're making? And if you've ever been to a bar, sometimes the owner does go around, and he doesn't tell anyone he's the owner. He just goes around and says, you guys having fun tonight? Yeah? All right, good. You guys having a good time? And people are naturally going to be like, yeah, we're having a good time, because the sort of what he's subcommunicating there is that maybe he runs the place, or he wants to make sure they're having a good time.
Right.
He's not subcommunicating, I'm hitting on them, right? So when you can sort of change the context of what you're doing in your head, even if it's a lie, even if it's not true, if you can trick your brain into believing that sort of subtext, then you can do that and you can get a good vibe from that.
Right.
Even if people would be like, "Who the hell was that guy?" I don't know, but he seemed like
he had a good time.
He had a good time, and
Right.
we're having a good time. So,
Right.
so you can trick yourself into doing these things if you have trouble approaching, or with these sort of negative beliefs you have in your mind beforehand. There's ways around that. Alpha guys, strong men, have this ability to withhold. And that ability communicates itself in the way that, for instance, if you were a girl and I was talking to you, let's say I started a conversation with you.
Right.
And you're like, why are you talking to me? Is that your best line? Or, those lines that girls say when they're trying to call you out on what you're doing. A really bad way to react to that would be using the same amount of energy that she did. So if you were like, why would you say that? You're like, that's really rude of you to say that. That's really mean. What are you, a bitch? Something like that, right? If you sort of react to it, that makes it worse. You just failed the test, right? So having restraint, and restraint, like I said, it sort of communicates in the form of being unreactive. So if a girl says, is that your best line? Sometimes the simplest reaction is the best. So maybe a raised eyebrow. Excuse me? Giving her a look that says, this does not happen to me, and I can't believe you just said that. It happens to me so infrequently, in fact, that I'm not even willing to say something, to even say that it existed, that what you did even existed. It happened to me actually on that Keys to VIP episode. In the third set, the girl, I said they look like retards, and the girl was like, that's really mean, you can leave now. And I didn't really say anything to that. I didn't even react to it. I was just like, well, you know what, I asked though. And because I didn't react to it, and because her friends didn't react to it, if her friends would have been like, yeah, that is really mean, you can leave, I probably would have had to leave.
Right.
Right? But because they didn't, you can see on her face, it just changes. Because it's almost like what she said didn't happen. A lot of the time, when you do something like that, when you make an aggressive move, and this isn't just with humans, this is with animals as well, when you make an aggressive move, you have to validate that. Someone has to validate that move before it actually exists.
Yes.
Any guys that get in fights, you notice before a fight happens, it's always like, what's up, motherfucker? You want to fight, huh?
You want
a
to do
problem
this?
with me? You want to start something?
Right.
And as soon as the guy says something back, that's when the fisticuffs come out, right?
Yep.
But if he doesn't do anything, a lot of the time a fight never happens. If he ignores it, yeah, that's right, man. Yeah, take off. That's right, or whatever. And so when you understand that this ability to be unreactive to things, this ability to stand over things and be higher than them, people are always sort of judging themselves off of other people. There's a mirror effect always going on. No one is entirely sure of themselves until someone responds to what they say in a way that lets them know that what they said is true or right or whatever. So if you know that and understand that, you can sort of guide conversations and guide reactions in a way that whatever you want them to perceive you to be, which hopefully will be alpha if you're in the context of with women or even men.
I mean, you say that, and I think of hanging out with like my little nephew.
Yeah.
And the reaction thing. You have either proactive, reactive, or inactive.
Yeah.
And a kid falls, and they always look up to you to see what they're supposed to do. Like,
did I hurt myself?
Did I hurt myself? And you're like, you kind of sip your tea, and you're like, dude,
you're okay, buddy.
Yeah, hey, buddy, you all right? Come on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and they'll dust off.
Yeah.
But it's always funny when his mom's around.
Yeah, and she freaks out, and then
He hit something, and she's like, oh my God. And I'm like, dude tumbled down the stairs. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell mom. But I'm like, he took like a 4-step stumble, and he got up and walked away,
Yeah.
and he falls on the ground now, and you react to
Exactly.
it. And so that's a powerful reminder of this reaction thing,
Yeah.
withholding a little bit.
there's actually neurons in our brain. They're called mirror neurons, and they were just discovered recently. The guy that discovered them is up for a Nobel Peace Prize. But what they are is they're essentially explain empathy. So if you saw a kid crying in the corner, a certain part of us feels a little bit of what they're feeling.
Right.
We feel sad, and that lets us empathize with them.
Right.
And it gives us sort of compassion, right? Well, there's actually neurons in your brain that kind of explain that. So you can actually use that in the sense that you can, like I said, it's like a mirror when you're talking with someone. If you're really scared and you're self-conscious, you're gonna make the other person feel that too.
Right.
And that's what makes them uncomfortable. Guys always say, they always ask me, what do I do? Like, what do I do when I run into things to say? Well, what am I supposed to do? Just act comfortable. Just lean back and smile. That's all you got to do. Because if you will get uncomfortable, you have nothing to say, then you make her uncomfortable. People only get uncomfortable when you make them uncomfortable. So you can sort of bypass that by just giving the illusion that you're comfortable, at least enough to convince them, and then it's fine. If you just lean back and smile, now the onus is on maybe her to make the conversation not awkward because you're comfortable. So as long as you just understand in your head that as long as I'm comfortable, as long as I'm smiling and in a good mood,
right.
everyone else is going to be too, regardless if I have anything to say or anything to contribute or whatever. That's just the way it works.
Let's talk about online dating.
Yeah, online dating was something that I wanted to, it was actually, I got into it because there was a certain time period a couple years ago when I wanted to get really good at dates. Because I found that when I was going on dates with girls, it wasn't as polished as my, meeting in the bar was. Right. Because I kind of knew the types of conversations to have in the bar, but when you get into the date, it's more like comfort. It's more, I didn't really know what to do, so I just wanted to go on a shitload of dates. So I found the easiest way to do that would probably be to turn to online dating, just because I could do it in my spare time. I didn't have to go out and try to set up all these dates at the bar and get phone numbers and all this sort of stuff. I could just do it on my computer. Right. And it'd be very easy for me to set up a lot of dates. And I didn't really have, I wasn't looking for Mrs. Right, obviously, in the dating profile. So as long as the girl seemed interesting and she seemed like someone I'd get along with, I'd try to set up a date with her. Here's what I do. I set up a really good profile. I have really nice pictures. At least, I got a photographer friend of mine to take a few nice pictures, and I have some good ones that sort of really show who I am in terms of my personality, my lifestyle. I wrote a good profile, and I put it up there, and I hardly ever message girls, but I get about 2 messages a day from girls who've read my profile and have messaged me. Okay. Now, most of those girls probably not going to be compatible with me, either physically or emotionally or personality-based and stuff like that. Maybe not. But I would say there's about 2 girls a week, out of those 2 a day, about 2 a week that I do, that are compatible with me. Right. And they're essentially served to me on a silver platter, because they've already read my profile. They're already attracted to me. They already know what I am about and kind of a little bit of my lifestyle and stuff. And they made the first move. So that's 2 girls a week that I don't really have to do anything for, any effort to meet, that want to meet me and want to talk to me. Right. And there's no really upkeep on that. So that's the value that I saw in online dating. Even if only you get 1 girl out of the whole year, out of those 2 a week that you end up actually really liking, that's still, you don't really have to work for that, That's one that was a girl that was presented to you. And I've met lots of really cool girls online dating, so there is a ton of really awesome girls out there that are trying this out. You talk about setting up the profile and putting up a picture. The 2 big things are obviously what you say and what you show. Yeah. So what would you what did you find worked the best? Well, the underlying theme of your online dating profile should be, I don't need to use online dating. That should be the underlying theme. So what that means is, don't write a profile that is being serious about it. That's being like, this is what I'm looking for in a girl, and because I read these profiles all the time. They're essentially, they're like resumes for the guys, being like, this is the type of girl that I want. And all it really says is that here's a guy that has had to resort to online dating because he probably can't meet girls in real life. And now he's taking this very seriously because he's probably a really serious guy, and it's just not fun. And so girls look at it and they're kind of like, well, he's cute and stuff, but it seems boring, So the biggest thing I always tell guys is that don't take it seriously. It should be almost a joke. Your reason for doing it should be, my friend told me it's a fun way to waste time, or I'm just trying it out for shits and giggles or whatever. And so your profile has to come across with that sort of vibe. Right. So my pictures, for instance. Your first picture you put on your profile, most online dating sites, that's your thumbnail, right? So when girls are sort of searching through all the men, that's your one little thumbnail that shows up, your first picture. So that one's the most important picture. Right. And so the big thing you want to do for that first one is it should be a picture that stands out. Doesn't necessarily have to be a good picture. It's just one that has to stand out. So mine, for instance, is me wearing an eye patch lean back, holding a beer with like my belly showing, and I look like a slob in it. But I look like a character. I look like who is this guy? What the hell? He's wearing an eye patch. He looks like a pirate, and he looks like very nonchalant. Not a care in the world type thing. And so that is enough for get girls to click on it. And then when they read my profile, it's essentially saying how I'm this sort of I'm an asshole, but I'm kind of I'm the asshole that like drives too fast and doesn't take shit from people, but kind of like the villain, but the villain you root for. And so my whole profile is basically describing this person who is me, but it's done in a way that sort of I'm not really taking it too seriously type thing. There's a lot of jokes thrown in there. I'm not really being too serious about what I want, or even saying what I want. It just kind of comes across and reads as it seems like this guy just took his time to. It's like I'm playing a practical joke on everyone that reads my profile, essentially.
Right.
I give a glimpse of what my life is like, so I describe sort of my things that I do. Again, not necessarily in a serious way, so I'll say things like, this is a good one I use in the profile. I'm the type of guy that's perfectly comfortable making the first move, whether that be a kiss on the doorstep or making it with you hard in the rain. You don't have to be a model for me to respond, but if you are a model, please prove to me that you're all not batshit crazy. So, like, what does that say? What does that line say? It says I date models, right? It says I date models, but I'm sort of saying it almost as if it's a bad thing. Like, listen, I've dated models, but they've been crazy, and I don't like them. I don't like dating them anymore. So if you are a model, all right, fine, but just prove to me you're not fucking batshit crazy. So that's kind of a really powerful line. It's a really cocky line, right?
Well, because they put them in a different frame.
Right, exactly. Here's a guy that's sort of admitting he dates models, but he's not really bragging about it. In fact, he's kind of saying it's a bad thing.
Right.
You just want to give paint a picture of your life. In a good light. By the time they finish reading it, they're thinking, here's a guy that, wants to live on a sailboat and is a writer, dresses up as a pirate for some reason, or like wears an eye patch sometimes, dates models, is from New Brunswick, loves the woods and the ocean. And they kind of put all this stuff together, and it's kind of like, this guy's really interesting. This is a guy that I actually want to message. He seems like someone I'd get along with.
Right. And so you put that up. That's you get your first message now.
Yeah.
Whatever. Hey, what's up?
Right. I'll respond differently depending on the message that I get. So if they send me a really short message, it's like, hey, how are you? Pretty good. You? Or something like that. Just I'm like, I'm not willing to invest any more than you are. And usually it'll bounce back and forth a couple times. But eventually, as soon as they sort of start talking, as soon as they start communicating something that is of value to me, so they start talking a bit about who they are, or that we have an interesting conversation, even through just the emails, I'll either say, playing email tag on a dating site is kind of a really lame form of communication. Why don't you give me your number? Or sometimes I'll digitally bounce them, as we say, to IM, so an instant messenger. So MSN or Skype or something,
right?
And go from there. But a lot of the time, I'll just get their number, and I'll just be like, listen, I'm kind of doing 5 things at once right now. Why don't you give me your number, and I'll call you back in like 5 minutes? So the question there isn't, can I have your number? The question there is, when should I call you? In 5 minutes or longer?
Different frame.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I'm sort of stating that I'm assuming I'm going to get your number. I'm not asking for it. But essentially, what I want to do is I want to get them onto the phone pretty quickly. I always want to frame it as if meeting on a dating site is lame, talking on a dating site is lame. This isn't something I normally do, so give me your number so we can talk like normal people so that I know you're not lame either.
One of the biggest parts of online dating, obviously, when you get on there is, for every 2 girls that you're getting a day, you're sending out messages.
Yeah. I mean, it is true. I do say that I get a lot of messages, but obviously, the most beautiful girls probably won't message you, right? Those are the ones you're going to have to message.
Right.
In those situations, when I message a girl for the first time, again, I'm always trying to communicate in that first message that what I mentioned earlier, I'm not taking this seriously. So, for example, I may say something like, hey, this week I was thinking of robbing a bank, fleeing down to the ocean, and faking my own death. Scuba tanks in the trunk. Are you in? P.S. You should probably bring some sandwiches or something. No egg salad, though, because it smells like farts. So something like that. It's kind of a juvenile message, right? But the whole idea there is that I'm obviously not taking this too seriously. That's kind of a dumb message. When they read my profile, they're gonna be like, it's gonna fit in with that profile, right? I'm like, well, that's kind of a weird message. Look at my pictures and see, this guy looks interesting. And then they read my profile, and I'm like, okay, that's why he sent that message. Because he's someone that just sort of seems like he doesn't give a shit and doesn't need this. And it's just goofing around. In fact, the last line of my profile even says, If I send you a really weird message, it's probably because I'm just fucking around with you. That's why I sent you a weird message. I'm just trying to see if you're cool or not, which will depend on how funny your reply is. So which begs them to
do something.
Exactly,
Right.
to ante up and
Right.
do something funnier, which is good because then you get girls with really good senses of humor that, you know, are willing to sort of show that. Like I always usually use just weird things I want to do with them and then ask them if they'll come along. We're gonna go down to the Toronto waterfront and steal that big pirate ship, and we'll bring a bunch of eggs with us, and when the Coast Guard comes, we'll just toss eggs at them and say that, you know, Viva la résistance. Anyway, but yeah, any sort of idea where it's just a crazy adventure you guys are gonna have together.
Right.
That's most of my first messages.
And what's the response? I mean, you on a usual.
Yeah, usual. If they're really serious, they'll say something like, "That's the craziest message I ever got," and maybe that's all they'll say. Sometimes they'll say you're hilarious, or sometimes they'll play along, which is always fun. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, yes, you know, I can make a really mean I can make a really mean egg salad sandwich. And we're like, all right, just don't put celery in it because it ruins it, or just something ridiculous like that.
Right.
You know, and then we'll kind of, what you usually do is I'll play along for a little bit in sort of this fake little adventure we're having, and then eventually you have to sort of cut that and be serious a little bit. So as soon as she sort of establishes something interesting about herself that I like for instance, she has a really good sense of humor. I'll say something like, "You're kind of cute. You know, you're funny too. You should give me your number. I'll call you in like 5 minutes." Like the one I said earlier. Or I'll just say, "Do you have Skype? Or, you know, do you have MSN? I'm gonna add you. I hate this, you know, this really lame form of communication, playing email tag." Mm-hmm. And I'll just do that and get them off the site.
And it's also a good, I mean, because let's face it, if you're only gonna email each other back and forth, that's kind of a waste of energy.
It is a waste of energy. I mean, what is it really, I mean, yeah. You're not gonna learn much about each other through emails necessarily. So at least if they're unwilling to give me their number, at least with an instant messenger, you get a little bit more personality involved with it, real time.
Right.
Know? So there's that. That's a little bit better. And then from there, you can usually get our number if you have a good conversation on the instant messenger. But the whole thing with women on online dating sites is they just want to know, especially when you're getting their number, they want to know that if they meet up with you, it's not going to be awkward. Like that's the biggest thing. I actually explicitly state this on my profile. I say, you know, if we meet up, don't worry, there won't be any awkward silences. If you make something awkward, I'll just tease you. I think that's what I said in the profile, because that's like their horror stories, right, of online dating. Is they met this guy, they went on a date with him, and it was really awkward, right? And so essentially, every time if they read my profile, that's what I'm trying to communicate. It wouldn't be awkward. When I get their phone number, we have a phone conversation. That's what I'm communicating on the phone. We just have a conversation. In fact, the first time I call them, I won't even try to set up a date. I'm just going to call them and talk to them probably for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on how good the conversation goes.
Sure.
And all I'm really doing is trying to communicate that if she meets me, it won't be awkward. We can just have a conversation and it's cool and it's normal. Now that's a skill in itself, essentially.
Well, right.
But that is what you want to communicate. I'll usually just talk about you know, weird things that happened to me that day. Like even something as stupid as oh my God, I was looking outside today and I saw this little kid riding a dog like a horse. It was hilarious. He had like a little saddle on it and everything. Like, it's kind of a stupid thing to say, but it doesn't matter because I'm just sort of, like you have to understand that women, the way they use the phone is they're not really using it. Like as men, when we use the phone, we're trying to get information out, right?
And that's it.
We're like communicating.
Who, what, when, where, why,
hey man,
peace.
yeah, what are you doing tonight, Mark?
I'm going out. You coming?
Yeah, man, it's 7 o'clock.
See you there.
All right.
Click.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
Get the information out, get the details out, and it's done. With women, it's sort of an extension. It's like a tool for their social networks, right?
Yes.
There's a bonding that can happen with the phone. It's how they keep up to date with their friends' lives and stuff. So you have to get out of that vibe that you're just there to send and receive information. You're there essentially to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. And it is weird for men because, you know, if I called you up and I was like, "Hey, Mark, so how'd your day go today, buddy? You know, how you feeling?" You're like,
yeah. I gotta go.
Yeah, man. Are you all right, man? Yeah. So essentially, yeah, you have to sort of communicate that it won't be awkward if you meet up. And you do that by just having sort of a nice chat for 10, 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. Then you end it, and then maybe the next time you call her back, you'll set up a date.
And what's your protocol there? Like, and I say protocol, what, you know?
One, you don't want to call it a date, obviously. Two, you want to be very, like you want to make sure that you pick the right type of thing. Like for instance, the object of the first date, and again, you don't want to call it a date, but the object of the first date should be you two, right? That should be the focus, you two talking to each other. So any sort of date idea that puts the focus on something else, mm-hmm. not a good date idea. Right, so you know, dinner and a movie is the classic example. It's a really bad date for a first date, anyway, because who wants to sit and eat with someone they don't know, and then sit in a dark room for 2 hours not talking, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's a good third date or fourth date or whatever, but not a first date. So the first date, the idea is you two learning about each other and you two having conversations and getting to know each other. So, I prefer to have dates in the evening over drinks as opposed to, it's just better, I find, than over coffee. Coffee is just sort of like a week date, I find. So that's usually what I'll do. So I'll usually have at least one bar near my house or my area or in the city somewhere that has something cool about it, an interesting quality about it, where I'll be like, oh my God, okay, you want to come? This place is really awesome. So you just take them there. You have a conversation for 2 hours, 3 hours, however long, over drinks, get to know each other, and then hopefully some sparks fly,
right?
And something comes out of it. But
now, see, that's a big thing because I guess the big problem comes down to the fact that how do I keep a conversation with somebody I don't know going for this long?
You want to ask questions that paint a picture of who she is and give her the opportunity to paint her picture of who she is. So asking questions like, where's the best place you ever visited? Or what was your best vacation? Where did she grow up? What was it like? Who was she in high school? If you could have any job in the world, what would it be? What do you do? What's her job now? There's a lot of those questions that normally wouldn't be good in the bar context in terms of when you're first meeting someone. Things you don't necessarily want to ask. Like, what do you do? So you come here often. Where do you live? Where are you from? And when you first start talking to someone, those are really weak questions to ask. But when you're getting to know someone, it's okay to ask those questions. Because there's already sort of a certain amount of attraction already established. So it's okay to ask those questions. When a girl's not attracted to you, you don't want to ask those questions because you're going to bore the hell out of her.
Right.
But when she likes you and you give her the opportunity to sell herself to you by asking those questions, then it's better. And then, if there's attraction and stuff, you can ask more risque questions. Maybe craziest place she's ever had sex, or, you get into those realm of topics. But essentially, yeah, it's just like getting to know you type stuff, building commonalities, finding the things you have in common. Her taste in music and film, maybe, or art. If she's creative, she's she plays instruments, makes films, takes photographs. Finding ways to connect on those levels are obviously really easy ways to build commonalities.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's mostly about just seeing if you click, seeing if you're two people that actually get along together.
I think a mentality thing that we talk about, or you specifically just talk about, is getting her to sell herself to you.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you never say selling myself.
Yeah, I don't know. It really is like them painting a picture for you. Now
Right.
they can choose to paint a shitty picture or a good one depending on what they want you to see. But at least you're giving them that opportunity to do so. And I always find if there's no spark, there's no spark. Like, you can't force a good conversation necessarily if one of the parties doesn't want to have it. So you have to assume if she's on a date with you, there is a certain amount of attraction there, and that she would be willing to sort of paint herself in a good light, or have the opportunity to sort of describe her likes and dislikes and dreams and aspirations and whatever else you're talking about. If she's not, maybe she's just a boring person. Isn't necessarily your fault. It could just be on her end.
And what would you do in that situation?
Probably on the date. Yeah. I'm not going to try to force the date into a realm that, I'm not going to try to make it a good date if she's not willing to put it in her effort too, So I'm asking, questions that I want to know about her, and she's kind of blowing them off, or thinks they're dumb, or doesn't want to answer them. I'm like, all right, well, listen, I don't think this is going to work, and I'll take my leave or something. But being the guy that wants to push to have a good date just for the sake of having a good date, there's probably some underlying issues there that having a good date isn't necessarily going to fix.
It's been a couple of years since we've sat down, and I definitely have to say, like, your energy, your vibe is changed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, even 2 years ago, I wasn't like new at this or anything, but I was still young enough that I hadn't internalized everything, I guess you could say. But now it's just gotten to the point where, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I guess you could say, just like a natural. In terms of, I don't really have to try too hard anymore for attraction. I don't have to think in my head what I have to say or what I have to do. I just sort of instinctively know what to do in any situation in order to attract or seduce or whatever the context. So I think that's changed. I've just sort of internalized everything. I've just sort of become the person that I've always sort of wanted to be. The guy that, when I was 21 years old and terrible with women, I was thinking, I was watching James Bond, Sean Connery, or, Warren Beatty, or all these people I sort of idolized. I was like, man, I wish I was more like them. I wish I could have that sort of natural confidence. So I think that in a lot of ways I have gotten there, and I guess that's probably the difference in my attitude and my energy. I don't really feel like, I don't know, it's interesting because I find that I don't have to work for anything anymore. I just put less effort in and get bigger rewards.
What do you attribute some of that to?
Literally living the lifestyle that I have the past 4 years, where 2 years ago my belief might have been, you know what, I'm not that good with girls, but I know exactly what to say and what to do in order to convince them that I am.
Right.
And now it's just like, no, I actually am really good at the girls, and I don't have to, there's nothing in my head that contradicts that. It isn't just with girls either, it's just in all aspects of, I always throw myself in situations that I'm scared of on purpose, because I've learned that if you constantly put yourself in situations that you're scared of, that you have fear for, you learn how to overcome them. You learn how to deal with the fear itself. Not the actual, what the fear comes from, but the actual feeling of fear itself. And when you can sort of come in control of that, you could really do anything. I mean, I always tell students when they take my seminar, becoming good with women is one of the smallest things you can get from this. Because when you have self-confidence, true self-confidence, it affects everything you do. It affects the jobs you get, the people you meet, the life that you lead. So I think that's the biggest difference. It's not so much with women. It's just about a way of life. It's about just being that guy that you always wanted to be, and putting through enough experiences in order to become that guy, and then internalizing it. I guess maybe like I have, and you just are.
Did you ever think when you were at that point that you'd get to where you are now? Is that something that you saw, or
yes, yes. And I think that was really important, knowing that I was going to get there. Like, that's a really important thing, believing that you can do it. Because if you don't believe you can do it, then you're not going to do it every time.
Period.
It's period, yeah. Like everything in life, you have to sort of believe that you can do it, and you will. Even if it's the toughest thing in the world. If you believe you can do it and you keep working at it, it may take a bunch of mistakes along the way or years, but you will do it. That's just the human condition. That's just the way that we're built. If we believe we can do something and we keep working at it, we'll get it every single time. It'll happen. It'll work out.
I was curious if you saw this too, because myself at 21, I did see you know, the other end of the tunnel, and I think the one thing that always sticks with me is very few things in this world are absolute. You can either believe in one thing or you can believe in another, and one of those beliefs will serve you and the other one won't, right? And it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to believe what I want to believe in order to get to where I want to get to.
Exactly. It's almost weird because there's like a certain part of my brain that's like, it understands the science of how to manipulate reality, I guess, in order to get what I want. But I don't really pay attention to it anymore. It just kind of instinctively knows. This is kind of a weird thing to say, but I just know that I have to believe something, even if something that I may think is impossible, or like a couple years ago I think is impossible. I know that I have to believe that I can do it in order to accomplish it, so I can trick myself into doing that. Like The Secret always advocates, if you just imagine that you have something, then you'll get it, or you just have to imagine that you have it. Well, that's really fucking hard. In order to actually convince yourself to believe it, that you can have it, when every part of you, all your experiences are saying that you can't.
Right.
You have to be a little bit of a psychopath in order for that to work, right? It's the only way around it.
It's almost an unrealistic look at things, and it's the only way anybody who's been, I mean, you know, again, you go back a couple of years, and if I'd say, you know, if someone said to you, man, you're going to be traveling the world and doing this, that, doing something that you love, writing, enjoying, teaching men. Yeah. For you to believe that would have kind of been like
completely out of my reality at that point.
Like really, come on.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, no. But then now that it's happened, it seems like it was the only course that it could have happened that way, you know. So it's weird to think back like that, but no, it's been an interesting ride.
Dude, like there's so much goodness that we could continue to talk about, but so we're gonna have to call you out in the next 2 years.
Fuck yeah, man! 2 years, call me again, dude.
Cajun,
fucking great seeing you, man.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, nice being here. Thanks a lot for having me.
Without a doubt, guys. Men's Room interview series. We'll see you next time.